Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. With this series, I'd like to talk to you guys about fractals individually, quickly, and at their easiest level. For those of you guys out there who are looking to do fractals at the master level, I'll be leaving links into the description of each of these videos from a YouTuber named DeRoyer, who has made some fantastic and very detailed guides on the hardest version or the master tier fractals of the Mist. So whether you came here looking for a higher level guide or you play through this guide and want to know what it's like at some of the higher levels, you were pretty much covered. At the start of the fractal, when your party is ready, head between the two NPCs and immediately veer to the left. You'll be dropping down a few platforms, and at the very bottom you'll see a crystal. You don't need to worry about this just yet, but it will come into play in just a second. From the crystal, you should see one straight hallway that opens up into a larger room, and there's a left and right path in this room. The path you choose is completely up to you and your party, but for the sake of argument, we're going to start with the right path. Heading down the right path, you'll immediately begin seeing some spiderweb AoEs on the ground. Be sure to avoid those as you make your way through the hallway, and as you make your way down this hallway, you're going to be bombarded by a bunch of tiny spiders. You don't have to take these out, but I would recommend, especially if it's your first time, taking these out with your party so they don't become an inconvenience. After dealing with the spiders and making a short journey down that hallway, you're going to see a large bridge, and if you watch that bridge, you'll see some AoEs going across it every now and again, and these are actually wind gusts that will knock you off and send you back to the beginning of the bridge. Again, here you'll see some spiderweb AoEs on the ground, and you're going to want to avoid those as standing in them will slow you, making it much harder to dodge those AoEs. In the middle of the bridge on the ground, you'll see two rune stones, and you'll need two players to stand on those at the same time to open the door on the other side of the bridge. At the same time, this disables the wind traps, so if people are struggling with those, it's a really good idea to try to get this part done as soon as possible. With the door now open, you and your party can make your way towards the next room, and once inside, you'll notice that there are some more spiders. In addition to the smaller spiders, you'll notice there are two elite brood mothers, and you'll need to take those out to summon the first mini-boss. Just make sure your party's focused on the correct enemies, and you should have no problem taking them out. The first mini-boss, or the brood queen, has a series of AoEs that are telegraphed and are pretty easy to avoid. The brood mother can also put several stacks of poison on you if you're standing in the wrong place, so just be sure to be moving around and damaging the boss whenever you can. Smaller spiders will continuously spawn throughout the course of this fight, but on the earlier levels you should be able to keep your attention on the Brood Queen until you've defeated her. With the Brood Queen out of the way, you can interact with the orb that appears on the ground that'll actually teleport you back to the crystal from earlier. Since one of the first objectives for this fractal is to restore energy to that crystal, you're going to want to make sure at least one player has interacted with the crystal. With that out of the way, you can now proceed to your next path. In our case, it'll be the left path. Shortly down that path, you'll see a large open hallway. Here, the entire floor of this hallway is covered in some magic, and it's actually in several different patterns. You'll just need to avoid standing anywhere you see that magic and make your way to the other side. Once at least two players have made it to the other side, they can stand on some runes to deactivate the trap for anybody still trying to get across. Once you and your party are ready, you can proceed into the next room where you'll be fighting your next mini-boss, or the Deepstone Sentinel. Now, this mini-boss isn't too difficult to take out, but there are some things to be aware of. More obviously, this boss is going to put some larger AoEs on the ground that you should try and avoid whenever possible, but more importantly, every time you damage this boss 20%, it's going to summon some wind sprites or some wind tornadoes. Being hit by one of these is going to carry you from one end of the room to the cliff on the other side. If you should see this happening to another player on your team, you want to make sure you use crowd control to break that wind sprite's break bar, so it'll drop the player before it reaches the edge. Once you've taken out the Deepstone Sentinel, another orb will appear that'll again teleport you back to the crystal from the beginning. Again, make sure at least one player has interacted with that crystal. And now that both orbs have been applied to the crystal, you'll notice you have a new special action hotkey. This ability, called the Light of Deldrimor, is going to be used for the rest of the fractals, so make sure you have something bound to your special action hotkey because you'll be using this a lot. The center room that you've walked through twice now, going left and right, will begin filling up with enemies, namely a Shadow Minotaur. This Minotaur is completely invulnerable to your damage until you use the Light of Deldrimor special action hotkey. Since the Light of Deldrimor is on a 7-second cooldown, it's a good idea to make sure not every member of your party is using the ability all at once. Rather, you'll want to stagger them to keep the boss vulnerable so you can do enough damage to take it out. Additionally, there'll be some veteran Shadow Harpies that can knock you down, so it might be a good idea to take them out, but they tend to ball up on the boss anyway, so as long as you're using some AoE attacks on that Minotaur, you should be able to take them out at the same time. Once you've taken out all of the enemies, including that Shadow Minotaur, a set of double doors will open and you'll be able to head straight through down a new hallway. After a short distance, you're going to notice there's a large drop-off that you won't be able to cross, and it's here that you'll be using your special action hotkey or the Light of Deldrimor in order to create a path to the other side. Each time you use the Light of Deldrimor in the correct area, you'll light some new tiles that you can actually walk on. As you reveal the tiles, you'll realize that it's not a straight path across and will even sometimes loop back to the beginning. Although this can be a little confusing, just be sure to always keep pressing on regardless of where the path takes you, because eventually it'll take you to the other side. As you make your way across this chasm, you'll notice some floating orbs, and you're actually trying to connect the path that you're revealing with those orbs. You'll need all of the orbs before you can progress into the next room, and it's pretty much the only objective in this particular area. While making your way across, you may encounter some spectral flames as well as shades. While the shades can do some damage and become a bit annoying, you definitely want to focus on the spectral flames, as they'll actually make the path behind you disappear. If this should happen, you'll be able to use your special action hotkey to save or re-reveal certain parts of the path. Following the tiles all the way to the other side of the room and lighting all of the orbs will open up the next part of this fractal, and by completing this part, the floor will actually begin to rebuild itself, allowing any players stuck behind to make their way across. From here, you just need to continue down a hallway onto a platform, and this is actually an elevator going down. Once you and your party are ready, everyone should stand on the elevator and it'll begin making its descent. Several times on the way down, the elevator will make an abrupt stop, and it's here that you'll have to take out a small wave of enemies. None of these enemies are all that difficult, just be sure you're helping your party take them out. Once the elevator makes it all the way to the bottom, you're actually in the final room of this fractal. Make your way into the large open room, and it's here that we'll be encountering the boss for this fractal, the Voice. As you approach the boss, you'll notice several tiles will become available for you to fight on, but the Voice will use an AoE attack that will remove tiles throughout the course of this entire fight. Of course, you'll be able to use your special action hotkey, the Light of Deldrimor, in order to either protect these tiles or make them reappear so you have somewhere to stand. At the start of this fight, you'll have 5 stacks of residual updraft that you can use to prevent yourself from falling off the edge. You'll still fall, but rather than falling to your death, you'll actually loop back around, and if you have a platform to land on or you use a well-timed Light of Deldrimor to give yourself somewhere to stand, you can rejoin the fight. That being said, if there's nowhere for you to land when you come back around and you can't use your Light of Deldrimor to make a platform, you will quickly burn through those 5 stacks and end up dead for the rest of this fight. It's because of these tiles vanishing throughout the course of the fight that the Voice itself isn't all that difficult of a boss. It's actually one part boss fight, one part just making sure you don't fall. When you first fight the Voice, it'll be a pretty regular encounter until you reach 80% of his health. At 80%, he'll gain a break bar, some barrier, and teleport across the room. After the teleport, the Voice will begin shooting red lasers at everyone in your party, and you'll want to break his break bar with crowd control abilities to prevent this so that you don't take any unnecessary damage. With his break bar broken, you can damage him normally once again. You just want to make sure you look out for any of his larger AoEs and any platforms that could be disappearing. At 60% health, the boss will begin summoning some spectral flames, and you'll want to make sure you take those out before they reach him. If too many reach him, there'll be a large AoE attack, and while on the easier levels it's not a party wipe, it certainly is on the later levels, and it's good to practice now. Preventing the spectral flames from reaching the Voice will allow you to damage him once more. Again, just make sure you're looking out for any tiles that might be disappearing or any players who might have fallen off the edge, as well as any of of the larger AoEs headed your way. Keep damaging the voice until you get him to 40%. At 40%, he'll again gain a break bar, some barrier, teleport to another part of the map, and you'll need to break his break bar before those red lasers do too much damage. Similarly, at about 20%, he'll again start summoning some spectral flames, and you'll want to make sure none of those make it to the boss. The best advice I can give for this Fractal is just to be weary of your surroundings as well as what the boss is currently doing. It's good to know at which percentage marks the boss is going to be doing certain attacks because you're going to need to handle each of those mechanics differently. As I've overstated, be sure not to overuse your special action hotkey because you never know when you might need that to save you from falling off the edge. With all of this in mind, you should have no problem taking out the final 20% of the voice's health and completing the Deepstone Fractal. To anyone out there confused or trying to get into Fractals, I hope this helps. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.